I hope I didn't catch you in your underwear or something.
No, listen, I got business on top and business on bottom.
All right, man. So, okay, great hit on Caravan to Midnight last night. I listened to it all.
It was interesting. I was kind of expecting him to be, to be talking a lot more, and he just really, let me have the floor and just kind of just talk about what was happening. And hopefully what's going to happen out of that is that there's going to be just thousands of people that write to the RNC, to the council at RNC, and just say, what happened was a travesty. You guys, you have to fix it.
Well, you can find that interview, by the way, on his Rumble, Caravan to Midnight. You can find that, John B. Wells. But I wanted to talk to you about markets. So what is going on? Where do you see things right now? Give us a snapshot of the financial markets.
All right. So before I do that, I've got to put my disclaimers out there, unlike Brent Frost ever did. All right. So we're going to be discussing financial markets and investments. I'm not going to be making any specific recommendations to you as an individual for anybody who's watching, because I don't know you. My comments are provided as a courtesy and for educational purposes only. Please consult your financial advisor or legal professional before making any investments regarding your situation. My company, U.S. Asset Management, is a member of Advisory Services Network. So we got the disclaimer out of the way. But so where
First Liberty wasn't telling people that, David, before?
Not once. So the main question is like where's the market right now? And what's interesting is when I went to happy hour at the 1818 Club across the street, last night, and as I was going up the elevator, I saw another couple that had looked like an invitation to an investment seminar that one of my friends is hosting. And I said, hey, look at that. It's amazing. Stock market's, at all-time high right now. And I said, God bless President Trump. And so just trying to screw with people sometimes. And they were like, oh, they rolled their eyes, he's a terrible person, he's a dictator, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, well, at least he's running the country. He's not doing it with his wife's auto pen. So
exactly. Or Susan Rice's auto pen or somebody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So where are things right now? The market had a really nasty sell-off back in April. I mean, it was pretty gross. We were fortunate that we didn't. Our clients don't tend to panic or anything like that. And we've seen things come right back up to all-time highs. Things are going well right now, but I think people have to be realistic also and just understand that some of what's happening out there, the market's going to all-time highs, metals going to all-time highs, bonds doing what they're doing. It's really a function of we still have a big money printing machine, up in Washington, D.C., and that money has to go someplace. And there are people that are out there that own a lot of businesses. The vast majority of stock market wealth right now, I think 90% of stock market wealth is concentrated in the top 10% of the population. Might be, I think it's a lot less than 10%. But that money has to go somewhere. I mean, you can only buy so many houses or boats or planes or whatever, and you're going to put that money someplace, and it's making its way into the markets and into metals and things like that. So, I mean, I'm not.
You've called that, David. I mean, you've been saying that for a couple of years that probably is what's going to happen. So you've been pretty spot on about that.
Oh, that's right. We did that bit where we talked about, I think, like what was going on. I want to say like in Venezuela or something like that. And I was like, look, the Venezuela stock market's gone from like 50,000 to like 2.5 million. Yeah. And it's not because they invented a new iPhone. It's because they just printed gobs of money.
Yes.
And we're on the same trajectory. So until that slows down, then things are, we probably stay on that same trajectory. What's really interesting is that interest rates right now on the 10-year, I think, are like around 4.25% or so. And interest rates, I mean, you're a veteran of the markets. Interest rates are a function of, it's just a simple math equation. Inflation plus growth equals, roughly the 10-year rate. And, we live in a world where like Jay Powell and these other guys, they're content with 2% growth in the economy and 2% inflation. And I think what President Trump is trying to push for is idealistically, he'd like to get 4% growth and 0% inflation. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, particularly with the big, beautiful bill, because it's going to be increasing the size of the deficit and the amount of borrowing that's going to happen. Hopefully that's going to be offset by growth in the economy and having more.
I was going to say, I think President wants to grow our way out.
that's really the only way that we can do it. I mean, that's the most prudent way to do it. So, it's just like when somebody out there, when you buy a house, your mortgage never goes up. If you don't refinance it, your mortgage stays the same, and gradually goes down over time. And, and if you get some appreciation of the value of your house, that's where the net worth, that spread is the net worth improvement. And a lot of that is just replacement value because of inflation. So that's kind of what's going on.
What about the Fed? You mentioned that. I'm hearing rumors, Powell's going to resign. I mean, have you seen anything significant on that?
I've heard the same thing. It's a pretty contentious relationship right now. The president frequently refers to Powell as retarded and things like that. So it wouldn't surprise me if Powell just said, "I'm kind of tired of this. I've been doing this for a long time." He's got plenty of money in the bank, plenty of net worth. He could go sit on an island somewhere and and sip cocktails for the rest of his life if he wanted to, and he's not going to miss anything. But
and he's got that money because he was trading his PA or his personal account on inside information. Just
come on, they don't do that. They don't do that.
So you think there's a chance he might resign? I mean, I've been waiting for like confirmation of this, but I haven't seen it anywhere. It's just kind of X rumors running around.
Yeah, I think he will. I mean, those rumors come from someplace. So yeah, I think it'll happen at some point. Like I said, he's probably tired of dealing with this. I mean, President Trump is the one that appointed him that position, and President Trump has gone to Powell frequently and said, "I need for you to resign." And unfortunately, the president can't force that because even though it is federal and even though it's called the Federal Reserve, it is neither federal nor a reserve. So it's this quasi governmental institution. Yeah, it is a cabal. It's a monopoly of banks that are all put together to control interest rates. So don't think for a second that the Federal Reserve is part of the government, but they make appointments and recommendations as to who should be leading the organization, and and they allow the president to have input on hiring, but not on firing. So that's kind of where we're at.
There was a narrative that he was going to try to find a way in the legislation to actually fire Powell, but I guess that wasn't found. Maybe it's because it didn't happen.
Not yet. I mean, but I expect there's some creative people looking for ways to do that. So that's.
What about interest rates? Well, first of all, if Powell resigns, I mean, the market Katie barred the door, right? Because rates are coming down. I mean, am I wrong on that?
I would think so. I mean, the biggest driver of interest rates in the economy is where mortgage rates are. Mortgage rates right now are roughly around 6.7%. They're coming down a little bit. They're still much higher than they were several years ago. But the lower that the mortgage rate goes, the more fuel you add to the American economy. So hopefully that we're going to see that. The other thing that's happening is blue collar wages are going up because you've got all these.
I saw that.
These repatriations, of people who've invaded the country, are being pushed out, and so we're going to see how that works out. I think what you're going to see is a lot of mid-sized and small companies are the ones that are the primary employers of those folks, and if they have to leave, they're going to have to replace them with other people. Those other people probably are the Gen Zers and and younger, and some of those folks have in the past have said, I'm not going to work for those wages, but if those companies raise the wages, then you're going to have incentive for people to come back to work. And when they come back to work, that's going to necessitate probably a rise in the cost of the goods sold for those companies. And if the revenue goes up at those companies, maybe we'll see the value of those companies going up generally. But when you look at like the mid cap index and the small cap index, there's a lot of industrial manufacturing companies and home building companies in there, so they would benefit from lower interest rates and what would be happening with employment. But it's probably going to take a couple of years for that to play itself out.
What about AI? I'm curious in your business. I was when I ended my Wall Street experience, I was on the bond trading side, and a lot of it went electronic, and that's one reason I left, because it just wasn't fun anymore. It was harder to make money, and it was just it wasn't the same. Are you seeing anything like that in your business, or are people gravitating toward advice?
we're still seeing quite a bit of growth in our business because the trust factor with a machine telling you what to do for a lot of people is fairly low. They want that human connection because I think a lot of people want to know that there's somebody who empathizes with their situation, because our primary job is not go out and and beat the stock market. It's wonderful if we do, okay? Our primary job is to listen to the problems and the issues, the financial concerns that people have got, and help them solve for not running out of money in the future. That's our primary responsibility, is to help try and manage that equation and help solve that equation.
Well, there's an old saying that the first thing in making money is not to lose money, right? I mean,
yeah, that's what Warren Buffett says. Warren Buffett says, rule number one is don't lose money. Rule number two is don't forget rule number one. So,
wow.
he's got some great little sayings like that. But but it is really kind of weird how there's so many investment advisors out there and so many professionals that really try to emulate Buffett, and they don't come close. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that he tries to find good quality companies that he can buy at fair prices. He's not the kind of person where he's saying, "Oh, I'm looking for this great company that's selling at a steal." Charlie Munger taught him a long time ago that just doesn't happen, at least not frequently enough to be repeated. So he said, find good companies with with quality management that share your values and how to run companies, buy stock in them, and then leave it alone and only fire them or only sell the investment if management violates the principles that you stand behind.
That's a good point, because I had this discussion with another guy who had been he was writing a book on tech companies and the revolutions coming and why you needed to, what was so great about all this. And I just mentioned what you just said, that, management and a lot of these companies with ESG and all this stuff coming on, were not doing what was right for the companies. I think that has started to change, but you really do have to watch management changes. I mean, look what happened at Boeing. I mean, that's a great example. I mean, now it's probably a buy, but 5 years ago it wasn't, because management had destroyed the company and nobody knew it yet. So following those corporate values is really important. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean that was actually one of my concerns several years ago, is that Boeing had tried to save $14 million on software expenses, and the software as it specifically related to, I believe, to the autopilot function. And when they outsourced it, the people who were working on it weren't really familiar with all the intricacies, and that's what caused several of these crashes. But to save $14 million, it nearly drove the company insolvent. And fortunately, they were able to arrest that and fix it. And they seem like they're back on on a good road. And I'd be willing to bet they probably don't make that mistake ever again.
And are you seeing companies remove this ESG thing faster, or are you still seeing that work its way through some corporate environments?
It's still out there, and it's still important to to some people, because I mean, you've got ideologues that work at some of these companies or own some of these companies, so it's not going to go away for some of them. But every investment report that we pull up on the services that we use, for the longest time they had ESG scores, for the company was one of the most prominent things on there. And the young guy that I worked with, he used to make fun of that and say, the higher the ESG score, the less interested I am in looking at the company.
The bigger the short. What about tariffs? A lot of tariff news coming our way. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, so the tariffs are really interesting. I'm stunned by the amount of money that has come in. The president yesterday wrote a letter to to Brazil saying, "Hey, we're gonna put a 50% tariff on everything that's coming in from the country." They import a lot of copper into the country, as well as other commodity type things like that. And so far this year, I believe I think the U.S. government has brought in like $121 billion of tariffs. I could be wrong. It might be 200. I got to double check it and see what the number is.
Your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
I'm watching my friends gain more and more weight, and then eventually I got to tell you, this is a little dark. But bad diet literally killed my whole crew.
Wow.
Diabetes, a stroke. I mean, all kinds of stuff. It's like, you had a stroke? You're not even 50 years old. You guys got to quit eating this stuff. Your body knows what's what. You're not conscious of this. But that's why people will go to the refrigerator and they'll grab this and that and the other and put together this outrageously elaborate combination of foods. Your body's trying to reach balance. Unbeknownst to us, our bodies are always trying to reach homeostasis. You can't eat all of this stuff and expect to live a long time. And one thing led to another, and I went, forget this. We're going to make our own product. So we partnered with one of the world's top 3 biochemists where nutrition-specific study is concerned. I said, all I want is the best nutritional and immune support product in the world. So we mixed it in yogurt. It's a powder. I got a bag of it here. I keep one on the console all the time, just so I can show people.
Yeah.
And it's a powder. Now, this is not candy. This is hardcore nutrition. And sugar is an enemy. And most people do not know that the reason these bellies are showing up on people all over the place, your body makes fat to store the toxins it can't get rid of. So it just puts them over here. But I can tell you this, you take this for 30 days and then lay off of it for 2 or 3 days, and you'll go, good grief, give me some more. Skin, nails, hair growing back. Cut yourself and it heals in half the time.
But the curious thing that's happening is we're not seeing those tariffs being reflected in higher inflation, at least not yet. So we're gonna see what's going to happen there. But we're 7 months into the year, and that's a fairly substantial number. That's enough money to come in to really, I think, move the needle.
I was talking to Ed Dowd recently, and he said that due to the entire increase in the economy over the last 5 years was fake because it was all driven by government supplied money for immigration, illegals coming in by the millions and providing for them housing, healthcare, food, everything. And now that's being reversed. And he said there is a big, bubble, especially in the multifamily housing market, which has been overbuilt, and there's a longer lag than the residential housing, and that is going to hit at some point. Do you see that at all? Because we're seeing a lot of, like, California just approved more money for multifamily housing in LA after they burned it all. Any thoughts on that?
Listen, I really feel I don't like the massive amount of multifamily that's going up, even around us. Again, the young guy that I work with, he comes up with some of the most colorful language, but when he looks at them and the way that they're designed, he refers to it as goy slop. And I was like, what is that? And he's like, it all just looks terrible. It's all the same thing. And it's like a bunch of Lego bricks that have been popped up and they all look terrible. Yeah. And to me, when I see the cost of what it costs to live in a house versus what it costs to rent a place, if you're going to be living in the same place for 3-4 years or longer, you probably should buy a home. If you don't know, and you maybe you're going to be transient, maybe you're here for a little while, then an apartment I think is the right thing. But I don't like seeing the amount of cluster building that's happening, particularly in Georgia. It's happening everywhere, and a lot of that is really pushing it's pushing the Democrat narrative, in Georgia, because you've got a lot of people coming from other places that are coming to Georgia because of the climate and the jobs and the things like that. And it's a little bit more affordable. And the Democrats have got a really well-oiled machine to reach out and touch those people before the Republicans ever even get wind of it. The Republicans like to talk to people that live in houses and neighborhoods. And in Georgia, the growth is in multifamily. And so that's going to be a challenge for the Republican Party. But from an economic standpoint, I'm not a fan of it. And
it's being pushed by the UN, right? I mean, this is an agenda, I think.
Well, when you look at it, it ends up being like tenement housing, after a while, where you're basically, you're working for the man.
Yeah,
and
totally.
Hopefully we're going to get to a place here where we get some real reforms that happen in the economy, where it makes it so that if somebody has a blue collar job, they can have a wife that that stays at home and takes care of their 3 or 4 or 5 kids,
Exactly.
and and a lot of people feel like like that is yesteryear, and we'll never see that again. But my hope, and it is a hope right now, is that we're going to see reform back to core family values and that kind of thing. And I think it ends up being ultimately good for the country and good economically too.
Well, you brought that up. Gen Z. What are you getting people in that generation coming to you for advice, or millennials for that matter? I mean, because millennials are what, mid-30s now. I mean, so they are starting to have money. But what about these younger generations? What are you seeing on the ground?
Not a lot, man. What's interesting is we're seeing the growth of Robinhood has really taken off. I think that stock is up to like $100 a share. I think it was like $20 or $30, last year. And I'm not recommending it, but what I'm saying is that it's up there because they're getting a lot of new customers that are coming in. A lot of them tend to be, younger customers. We don't have a lot of younger customers that come to us. Usually the kind of people that come to us are somebody who is typically like in their 50s. They've got an investment account here, a savings account there, a 401k someplace, and they feel like they've got like a bunch of little dangling participles that are out there where everything's not working towards one plan. And that's usually about the time that people are motivated to seek professional advice.
Got it. Well, let's talk. Well, one more thing on the economy. I heard a report last night on sports gambling and how horrific this is. Have you seen that in that equity space? I guess they're just printing money, but it's really dangerous and diabolical to the people who are getting addicted and really abused and harmed by this. Do you see that at all?
I don't see it. I mean, fortunately, I don't see that. I mean, the biggest thing that I've seen in the last 10 years, the most tragic thing I've seen is people, is the younger generation, people in the younger generation, dying from drug overdoses, from recreational drug use. That to me is absolutely awful. And I've seen that firsthand, with friends and, other folks that have been affected by it. I haven't seen really anything going on with sports gambling, but
I was just curious if that's kind of like not competition, but a factor you have to deal with, but I guess not. Okay.
It has not been so far. No.
What about the Georgia GOP? Let's switch to that. How do we fix my home state, the great state of Georgia?
Listen, we clearly had a rigged election that happened on June 7th. There's haters that are out there that are saying, you just need to hug it out and get to work. And I'm like, I'm not going to hug it out with people that cheat and lie and steal, to rig an election so that they can maintain power. I had a 22-point plan to try and resuscitate and grow the Republican Party. My opponent never once articulated any type of plan other than just reelect him. And it's really interesting seeing what happened in that election, because there's a family that's down in Southwest Georgia, or southwest of Atlanta, the Frost family. And I believe that their son, conspired to rig this thing because they needed access to politicians and money. And again, that's my opinion. That's where my intuition is leading me right now. We haven't, we will see more facts come out, but when you look at motive and opportunity, it's all there. The motive was to maintain that direct line to big donors and politicians. There's a psychological phenomenon that's called social proof. And if one of your super wealthy friends sees, me and you sitting down talking, about investments, and then you get up and go over and talk with him and say, oh yeah, I've been working with Dave for a while. They tend not to do the homework. They tend to take you at your word, whether they talk with you or if they just happen to see you. And that happens a lot. Human beings, unfortunately, are lazy that way. And I think that they really tend to exploit that. And they were looking to exploit that, because I had said early on that I thought that they were a cancer on the Georgia Republican Party. Turns out I was right. And they wielded their checkbook as if it was a billy club. They beat people over the head with it to beat them into submission. That if you didn't do what they wanted, they wouldn't help support you. They wouldn't help your county. They wouldn't help your candidacy, whatever it was. And we don't need to operate that way. I had said early on that that I was going to, force a conversation with them to make it so that they got along with all the other kids on the playground. Otherwise, I was going to tell them to pack it up, because I'll go find 100 other checkbooks just as big as theirs to help support the Republican cause. So right now we have an appeal in. The Georgia GOP said, nope, we're not listening to your appeal. And so we're trying to get the RNC to do something about it. And they told me a week ago yesterday, that they were looking into it. I haven't heard anything yet, but I know for a fact that Michael Whatley and the council at the RNC are receiving hundreds, if not thousands, of emails and letters, saying, hey, this thing was clearly rigged and you need to nullify it. And I think they should, because the RNC is the main franchise for the state Republican parties, and they owe it to themselves and to other Republicans across the country to maintain the value of the franchise.
So how do people do that? Now, we've got a big audience all over the country, but a lot of them in Georgia, a lot of Republicans. So how would people email Mr. Whatley?
The best thing to do is you can send an email to mwhatley, MWHATLEY, mwhatley at rnc.com, or you can send one to counsel, COUNSEL, at GOP.com. You can put those out there, send them a message and just say, hey, I think this thing was rigged. I think you guys need to really look into and investigate it and overturn that election, and have new elections at the county level on paper ballots, where the ballots are counted in public in front of everybody. And I think if that happens, I think I would slaughter Josh McCoon. I think I would absolutely slaughter him, because everywhere we went, I was just annihilating him.
Well, you had a plan. I mean, Josh doesn't have a plan. I heard you say that last night. I mean, you had a plan to fix the finances, to get minorities involved in the GOP, to really re-energize the party, to motivate people for 26, to win across the state. And now I'm worried about 2026, because I don't think Josh even cares.
No.
I think it's all about his own personal power. So that's critical for the movement, is Georgia.
Yeah, I think for him and some other folks that are licking his boots, so to speak. And I know that there's people out there that hate that, but call it the way it is. They value title, position, and power, or perceived power. And the problem is that when you do that, you end up driving away the grassroots, and you have an organization that just gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And the mantra for that management style is keep it small and rule it all. Well, if you do that, you eventually get to the point with attrition where you just got one person that's ruling everything, and you're the king of nothing. And we don't need that. We need broad-based participation. And my greatest concern is that grassroots people across the state are just saying, you know what, I'm going to vote. I'm going to vote Republican. I'm going to vote for the conservative candidate, but don't ask me to lift a finger for people that are liars and manipulators. And I hate to say that, but that's the perception right now about what happened at that convention. For any honest person that was there, they're saying that, and I put out a survey to ask as many people as I could that went to it. I sent my survey to several thousand people. I had 256 people responded that said, I went to it, and 88% of those 250 some odd people said that it was rigged and not fair. That's a pretty large sample size of the people that went to the convention. That's over 10% of the people that went there. But what's really troubling is that nearly 88% is nearly everybody. 88% of the people said it wasn't fair. And that includes people who didn't vote for me. I had people that reached out to me and said, David, I didn't vote for you, but my side cheated, and it's not right, and we got to do something about it.
Well, music to my ears, but we got to keep pressing. There's no other option. Tell us about your business. How do people get in contact with you, et cetera? How do you operate? All that.
Really, really simple. So we are a fee-based investment advisor, meaning that we charge a fee as a percentage of the assets. We don't get paid commissions to manage clients' accounts. We have different investment models, whether it's growth and income, or income oriented, or whether it's aggressive growth. So we will adjust our models to what your needs are and what your financial plan dictates. And the easiest way to reach out to us is just look at us-am.com is just the easiest way to find me. And there's a calendar link on there. If you want to have a discussion, happy to do it. It's not going to cost anything. There's no cost or obligation. We'll find out, have a conversation, and just find out if you're a good fit for us, and if and if we're a good fit for you.
Outstanding. David, thank you very much. We'll have you back down the road. Appreciate it. Good luck in Georgia.
Pleasure. Thank
Stay
you.
on it. All right.